Hello everyone. Now you have learned some knowledge about the containerization application. Next, this demonstration will show you how to use a YAML file to deploy an application. And some simple parameters and configurations will be set at the same time. This demo will deploy Tomcat based on a template and mount the data volume, add configure maps, add secrets, add Node Selector, and add health check at the same time. Let's learn about it. Firstly, log on Alibaba Cloud, enter the Container Service console, and create a Kubernetes cluster. You can view relevant documents and courses for the operation of creating clusters. After the cluster is created successfully, click Application, Deployment under the left navigation bar. Click Create by Template. You can choose different sample templates to understand the basic framework of deployment. Now let's go to deploy Tomcat. In order to edit YAML better, you can create YAML files locally for editing, confirm it is correct, and then enter whole codes into the console. You can refer to the template to write the YAML file for deploying Tomcat. API version does not need to be modified. The kind remains deployment. Metadata marks the name of the deployed application. Modify it to Tomcat Demo, and set the label to Tomcat. Then, set up the configuration of the application. The number of replicas indicates that there are several copies of the deployed application. Set it as 2. The corresponding application is Tomcat. Next, you should set up the template for deployment. The label also needs to be changed first. Set the name of the container and select the version of the image. Here the image is Tomcat. The version is latest. That means the image will be pulled from the public repository. Expose port to 80. In this way, a basic template is configured. Next, we add more detailed configuration items to improve our application deployment. Add a health checkup. On the container service platform, we can add health checks to the application to detect the health status of the application. Liveness probe and readiness probe can be used to detect the health of a container in an application. The way to check is to send a request for HTTP GET to see if the containers responds. We can define the delay time of initialization. That is, when the container starts to run for a period of time, it achieves a stable state, and then health check will start. Defining timeout, such as 5 seconds. If containers do not respond to HTTP requests for health checks in 5 seconds, they are thought unhealthy. Define cycle time. That is, check health in every few seconds. Then we can add storage volumes based on the template to store important data generated when an application running. Before adding data volumes, we need to create the storage volumes first. There are 3 types of storage volumes for applications on Alibaba Cloud, including Cloud Disk, NAS, and OSS. This demo is going to use a Cloud Disk. Enter the ECS console. Click on Disks and click on Create After entering some simple configuration information, you can create a disk. It should be noted that the zone of the disk should be consistent with the zone of ECS in Kubernetes cluster. After creating the cloud disk, you need to mount and claim the volume in possible ways, such as using YAML files or configuring it in the console. Firstly, mount disk on the volume of the Kubernetes cluster. Click on Volume on the menu bar. Click on Create and select the disk you just created. Next, create a storage volume claim. Click on the tag page of volume claim and click on Create. Enter the name of PVC. Click Create. In this way, a persistent storage volume is mounted on the cluster. Now, we use the added volume in the YAML file for deploying Tomcat. Mount the volume. Enter the volume name and mounted path. This path is the absolute path inside the container. Then claim the storage volume. Next, we can add some configuration items whose values are actually key value pairs. We can define these key value pairs from the command line or create them in the console interface. Click on Config Maps and Create. Enter the name of config map. Here we create two configuration items, setting special level to vary and special type to charm. In this way, we can refer to the keys as environment variables in the YAML, which is used as the deployment configuration file. Specify the reference of the variable, including the name and the key of config map. Similarly, we can define some secret keys in the console and then refer to them in the YAML file. Click Secret, then click Create. Enter the name of secret, where we set the username to admin and password to a complex string. The secret is also referenced by calling environment variables. Specify the source of secret and modify the corresponding name and a key value. In this way, we do not need to re-enter some global information and sensitive information like passwords when deploying applications. As long as the key value pairs are modified in the web console, all applications and containers that refer to these variables will be updated accordingly. This is both efficient and safe. Next, we can add Node Selector. When deploying an application, we can specify a node with a tag. In this way, we can satisfy our manual regulation of application deployment. Click on the cluster and click the node. We can see that there are masters and workers in the cluster. Now, add a label to the worker. Remember the ID of the worker node. And add a tag to the worker node. The label name is group, and the value is worker. We can also add a tag to several nodes at one time. When the addition is complete, add the Node Selector to the YAML file. In this way, the YAML files we used for deployment are all completed. Let's review and check the complete YAML. It includes basic deployment functions, setting application names, images, and versions. And it includes health checks, including survival checks and readable checks. It also mounts the volume by modifying the name of PVC and the path of mounting. And environment variables are called, including config maps and secrets. Finally, the Node Selector is added and the group tag is used. So the function of YAML is more complete. Copy the code and enter the complete file into the console. Then click Deployment. Now we can see that the Tomcat application is running normally in the container, but it lacks a load balancer service. So we need to deploy a service to listen the Tomcat pod and expose the application. That allows other visitors to access applications deployed on container service through the public network. Deploying YAML files for load balancer is relatively simple. Click on Deployment and click on Deploy by Template. Specify the deployment type as Service. Specify the name of the service, such as Tomcat Service. Match the deployed Tomcat application. Listen on port 8080. Then click Deployment. Through Cluster Dashboard, we can see Tomcat and the Load Balancer service. By accessing the external endpoint of Load Balancer, you can verify that the deployment is successful. It works. Thank you for watching this demonstration. If you want to learn more about configuration options and methods, you can create a Kubernetes cluster on Alibaba Cloud and make some practices. That will help you quickly get started with deploying containerized applications using YAML.